not go restrictive. Don't you know this is the year 2023? And it's like, yeah, because maybe God knew what was best for us and for society. God didn't put the rules just because he loved being a rule maker. He did it because he's like, this is what's best for you. Morons, right? That was added by me. It's not scriptural. But you know he has to think that sometimes, right? It's like, what are you doing? How stupid do you have to be to get mad at me for showing you how to live the best life in the midst of this world? Right? Wonderful trick by Satan to get us to believe that. And it says, do not steal, do not covet. Why not pay attention to what God has given you and what he's entrusted with you rather than constantly looking at others and coveting others? This is a big one that we're seeing, and it impacts all of us. Coveting is one of those because it's a word that we don't use anymore, right? So we kind of, whatever, I don't even know what that means, right? Well, it's basically the basis of what's causing all of the mental and anxiety that we're experiencing in our country and society right now. What is social media based on? Getting covet, right? That is what it is for. It is there strictly to make sure you're breaking the 10th commandment every day. Right? Now, I'm not saying don't get on social media, even though that wouldn't be a horrible thing. But you have to recognize what it's doing. And it is not helping you. Is our society in better shape now? No, it's not. You can just look at all the measurables. And it is attacking our youth in unbelievable ways. And I know, as a kid, whenever adults would tell me, this is not healthy for you, I'd just, well, you're just an old person. All right? And I get that. And so I know our youth are hearing that and saying, oh, you don't understand what it's like to be a kid now. You're right, and I'm glad I'm not a kid now, because you are being lied to in more ways than any other generation has been lied to. Right? And the coveting, what happens on social media so often is you put your best self out there, or you put your worst self out there to get sympathy. Right? But mostly it's putting your best self out there, and then people look at, well, why isn't my family like that? Or why don't I look like that whenever I take those pictures? Or whatever it may be, right? And what it does is it just starts working your mind, and all of a sudden you're not satisfied with anything. Everything, you feel like you need more, right? And then you're not even caring about people. You're just looking at stuff and things and status, right? It's destroying. And that's Paul is saying, we have to step back. We have to recognize what's going on. And we have to start loving each other as our neighbor, right? So that we don't look at someone, we don't follow someone on social media just to see all the stuff. We recognize, wait, that's a person that is broken and flawed and sinful, just like me, right? This is very important, and we're seeing what it's doing to society by just the unbelievable rise in mental health issues, all that kind of stuff. And we're trying to treat that in ways that's not going to fix the problem. Right? Just because you're on medication and looking at social media doesn't mean it's going to help. Right? If you continue to covet after you're on medication, you're still going to struggle. Right? It is a ugly system that's going on right now. And I think this is what Paul is talking about. He's like, we live in this complicated world that has so many different messages coming. And we need to make sure that we are the only death that we have is that we love each other. And then in verse 11, it says this. It says, and do this, understanding the present time, the hour has already come for you to wake up from your slumber, because our salvation is nearer now than when we first believed. The night is nearly over. The day is almost here. So let us put aside the deeds of darkness and put on the armor of light. Let us behave decently as in the daytime, not in the carousing and drunkenness, not in sexual immorality and debauchery, not in dissension and jealousy. Rather, clothe yourselves with the Lord Jesus Christ and do not think about how to gratify the desires of the flesh. Now, I love this. It says, you better understand what time it is. The hour has come. You need to understand what's going on in society. You need to understand what's happening. And it says, wake up from your slumber. You know, and I love this illustration. You can either live in a slumber or you live awake. Right? And this, I think, happened last night. That we have about 1,100 dogs in our house right now. Yeah, and one. That's right. I forgot that one. 1,101 dogs in our house. And about 3:15 in the morning, for some reason, 560 of those dogs start making noises of some sort, right? And so if you've ever kind of been woken up whenever it's not time to wake up, and your goal is you're sitting there in bed and you're like, Lord, please just take me now. Like that's my first thought, right? And then you realize, no, I think you still have a purpose for me on this earth, and unfortunately, I'm going to have to go and let a dog out. And you're like, I don't know if that's what you desire of me, Lord, but I know I'm going to have to do it. But Lord, how can I do this without waking up? I want to stay in my slumber, right? So you try it mentally. It's like, okay, I'm going to just kind of slide out of bed. I don't want to put too much effort into it. I know I have to be able to see a little bit, but I don't want to see fully. So like, how far? Because I know if I open my eyes all the way, I'm done. Right? I want to stay in the slumber. And so you kind of go and you like find handles and stuff like that. And then, of course, you stump your toe on something. You know, it never works out the way you want to. But you would like to stay in that slumber. Right? And then you crawl back into bed and you just pray, Lord, just knock me out. Whatever it takes. If it's a literal knock on the head, it's fine. Right? And it's a weird place, and we've all been there. And where you start to have to function, but you're just in this kind of fog. And you're just kind of, I just want to stay there. I just want to stay in the fog. I don't want to be aware of anything other than what I'm doing right at this moment. Not in the slumber. Right? Now, it's good for me to try to stay in the slumber at 3:30 in the morning when I'm dealing with dogs. But when it comes to how you're going to engage in the world around you as a Christian, you better be fully awake and not going around in a slumber. And what we're doing in our society is we're trying to keep everyone in a slumber. We're trying to keep things confusing. We're trying to keep things pretty blurry, not knowing what is true, what is not true. We're telling kids you can be a boy, girl, you can do this, you can do that. Let's just cause as much confusion. Whenever you're dealing with all that confusion, it's like that stupid dog waking you up at 3:30 in the morning. You're pretty angry about it. And you're like, I don't really want to fully deal with this because it's too much. Let me just stay in the slumber. That's where I'm comfortable. That's where I want to be. And Paul is saying, no, as a Christian, you better wake up. Better wake up and start putting on the armor of light. Like we have a responsibility to wake people up who are in the slumber and tell them there's a better way. You don't have to live with all this confusion because you can live a life that God has called you to live. God has the answers to that. God has the rules that will actually make your life better than make the life confusing. And I encourage all of us to make sure that we wake up. that we don't just get content to be in the slumber. Sometimes that's what we want to do. It's like, no, you know what? I don't want to deal with and talk about how to engage in the government. I don't want to talk about, sexuality issues or what's right or what's wrong. I just want to go through my day. I get that because there's no easy answers. But God's called us to be awake, because when we start being awake, what happens is we start living a life that he wants us to live. And then that reflects to those who are still in the slumber, and they start saying, maybe that's a life I want to live. Maybe it's time for me to